everybody. Welcome to the show. Around the Nation, right here. TYT Nation. I'm your host, Jeff Waldorf. A great show for you guys today. We got Ron Placone with me. We got great stories. Just great, man. So stick around. It's tremendous. My brain is pulling a Trump right now, but anyway.
It's great. You have all the best words.
All the best words. Fantastic. And tremendous. So that's pretty much it. Hey, Ron, how's it going?
Hey, buddy. How are you? Did you watch the Super Bowl?
No, I did not.
Oh, you did not?
No.
Okay. Well, I guess someone has to not.
I'm one of the people that has to not. But there is actually
All right.
a Super Bowl related story, so that's going to be fun. We got that at the end of the show. Why, you big sports fan?
I mean, I don't know if I'm a big I enjoy the game. You know, I hate the NFL is one of those organizations that I love to hate and hate the fact that I love. But because they get less ethical by the year. But I do enjoy the game. You know, I still enjoy the game a good bit, and I thought it was a good game, the Super Bowl. And we'll probably talk more about it with the story coming up. But yeah, I thought it was a good game, and I liked Lady Gaga's halftime performance.
I heard things about that. I heard things.
Okay.
For me, like I don't watch a lot of sports, but I used to play them, so that was a surprise. Not like. It was more like, high school and stuff, but I didn't actually play for the team. I just played for fun. And so that's what I did.
That's awesome. I played in high school for the team. No. Just like in my backyard.
For fun, just with my friends.
By myself. I had imaginary.
No, I had friends. I swear to God, I had friends.
I'm not doubting you.
I'm sure.
I just assumed you meant for the team.
No, not for the team.
You're the only person that says, "Yeah, I played in high school, like for the team." No, just in my yard. I had these.
We need to have.
There was these kids. They were in middle school. They were my friends. We played.
I swear, we need to have like. Actually, I couldn't afford to play high school football or middle school football. They actually made you buy your own shit.
About it.
So I mean, no, it's like they actually do make you buy your own like football supplies. My mom's like.
Yeah.
No, you can't do that. I can't afford that shit. Go play with your friends. Leave me alone.
Hey, man, it worked out for you. I didn't.
Sad.
The only thing I did was I fenced. I was on the fencing team for a hot minute.
Okay, yeah, that
was the only sport
cool,
I did. But
at the same time, not like very nerdy.
Oh, dude, it's extremely nerdy. Are you kidding me? It's very nerdy. And I never even made it to Sabre, if there's any fencing enthusiasts listening. I never even made it to Sabre. I retired at foil, so I made it nerdier.
Oh, yeah.
But it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Hey, as long as you had a good time. But anyway, before we get to doing a breakdown of what we're going to talk about today, I do want to give a shout-out to everybody who's a patron, because you might have noticed the new set. Yeah, kind of a new set, and I have you guys to thank for it, the patrons who help support the show. I didn't, you guys helped me pay for it. It's not my set, it's your guys' set. So you helped me afford this, and so thank you so very much for helping make Around the Nation better and TYT Nation better. Patreon.com/TYT Nation if you want to continue to help the show and help us improve. So thank you so much for those who are patrons who do donate. Anyway, let's do your breakdown. So we've got polls. Polls are now fake news. Did you see that? Fake news?
Yes, I did see that.
That's awesome. We have a sad Trump rally. That's great. Then we've got Bernie Sanders calling out Donald Trump. Then we've got a pro-Trump protester, telling us the truth about Donald Trump. And then we've got a football-related story about Putin stealing a ring. It's great. So this is fun. This will be a fun show. All right, let's start out with polls. Now, let me start that again. Now, on the campaign trail, and especially during the primary, Donald Trump loved polls. I mean, you heard him talking about polls all the time. This poll said I'm doing tremendous. I'm actually beating all these other losers. It's great. I'm doing fantastic. Look at the polls. Look at the polls. There's a poll over here that says I'm doing so much better than Chris Christie or whatever. So, look, he loved polls. He loved to cite them all the time, right? every campaign stop, it seemed like he was talking about the polls. Now that he's president, he seems to not like polls anymore. That's kind of funny.
They're very mean to me.
Yeah, they're very mean to me. Tremendously mean. It's a disaster.
I think in the GOP primary, by the way, just a quick aside, I think in the GOP primary, a stale ham sandwich was doing better than Chris Christie.
Yeah, it's true. And then Chris Christie would eat the stale ham sandwich. Hey, are you gonna eat that?
Handed it to you. That was for you.
Thank you. But now, anyway, today, recently, Donald Trump hating polls. Absolutely. Now, why would he be suddenly hating polls? Well, there's a bunch of new polls that show Donald Trump being the most unpopular incoming president of our lifetime. He hates them, and now he calls them fake news. Now, this is on Twitter because apparently that's how the president of the United States likes to communicate with the rest of the country. Twitter. He says any negative polls are fake news, just like the CNN, ABC, NBC polls this election. Sorry, people want border security and extreme vetting. Extreme vetting. Now, look, maybe that's what some of your voters want. That's not the majority, though. That's not the majority of the American people. Besides, we already have, when it comes to vetting, we do have extreme vetting, don't we, Ron?
Yeah,
our
absolutely.
screening processes are toughest in the world. Look, you have to wait, on average, 18 months at least to, even get into the country. So it is kind of amazing. Now, as far as the polls
amazing
go,
is one way to describe it. Yes.
Yeah, well, tremendous is another way. Now,
tremendous.
as far as the polls he's referencing, you got a new CNN poll that finds that 53% of Americans do oppose his travel ban, and that's what this is about. And 47% of Americans apparently in favor. Now, polls, we know, are representative samples of the American public. So it depends. Sure, you can oversample certain groups, get a skewed result, and that doesn't necessarily make it fake news. Basically, it just takes numbers, and you can have polls that are somewhat misleading if you oversample either side. Now, there doesn't seem to be any evidence of CNN or any of the other networks doing that. So, but anyway, he still believes, no, it's fake news. It's all fake. It's not real. It's crazy.
Another piece of irony here is that, on the campaign trail, they would, there were a few situations where they would kind of skew polls to make it seem like it was, closer than it was. Did you see some of those CNN polls where they didn't factor in anybody under 50?
That's crazy.
There were those polls, like nobody under 50. So they were like, well, it seems like a lot of Americans, and I forget the exact topic, but it was something like alluding to Trump doing better than he actually was at the time.
Well,
but they did so by making sure nobody under 50 was even taken into account, which I think may reflect their viewership too. Because I mean, keep in mind their average age is I think 65 or something like that, or 63. So it's mostly older people watching them anyway. But yeah, there was no one under 50 that took the poll. So it's to say that polls are totally altruistic and a complete reflection of public opinion, of course that's not the case, that you got to take it with a grain of salt. But to call it fake news is just absolutely ridiculous. And it's very ironic coming from a person who some polls were actually skewed to his favor on the campaign trail.
Well, that's interesting that you bring up the skewing on his favor. I mean, that's sort of what the strategy was back then. Media working with Hillary Clinton. We've got the WikiLeaks to prove that. Where, CNN, MSNBC, all those other, places, those news organizations, were helping to build up Donald Trump because they thought it would be good for Hillary Clinton to go and try to run against him because, she was apparently much, much better than Trump. She had a much better chance of winning. Well, we see how that turned out. So that's interesting that you bring that up, Ron. That's a good point. But as far as these polls are concerned, I don't see any evidence of tampering or oversampling certain groups. So, but anyway, now he said this later on. He said the same people that did the phony election polls and were so wrong are now doing approval rating polls. They are rigged just like before. So again, The polls that were what polls? You mean the polls that were rigged in his favor during the primary?
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. How were they rigged before?
Right.
Like that'd be a great question to ask. How were they rigged before?
They were rigged.
Because yeah, I mean, as you pointed out, the media needed a horse race, and they got so. They
Yeah,
wanted a Clinton Trump horse race, and they got it.
pretty much. And like again, as you were saying, calling it fake news, it's not fake news. This isn't. It's not accurate. I mean, fake news. What that is literally making things up out of whole cloth. Okay, there's a reason that they called it fake news. And look, there's plenty of that going around. It's going around on the left. It's going on the right. And let's be honest, like the fake news that we see on the left, a lot of liberals are actually pretty good at deciding and figuring out what is fake news and what isn't. On the right, it's a lot more of a problem because they're like, oh, this fits my narrative, so I'm going to go with it. Yeah, okay, man. And you wonder why we say that you're living in a completely alternative universe with alternative facts. But see, here's the other thing about Trump. See, it kind of goes to who he is. We know that Donald Trump pretty much only cares about what, cable news says about him or, his rallies and stuff. I mean, because he's always watching the news. He measures himself by his popularity and his poll numbers. And also by how many positive versus negative segments he has about him on the news or, again, his crowd sizes, right? So when he sees a polls that he does not like, I think that's considered a personal attack against him. We can't have that. And since he believes he's a winner, by definition, it has to be fake news. Anything that counters that narrative. I mean, it has to be fake. Has to be fake, right, Ron?
Yeah, I mean, not everybody can have the journalistic integrity of Steve Bannon and Alex Jones. So there's a lot of fake news out there, and Donald Trump, he knows more about journalistic integrity than anybody. He knows
Sure.
more than the generals and everybody else. So
More than
so
the
he's
generals.
gonna hold the fake news accountable.
Yeah. And look, sometimes it can be pretty hard to figure out what's fake news and what isn't. That's why you actually have to look into things. And there's, you've got to vet your sources. You've got to take a look at things. Sometimes, like, you run across the story and you're like, oh my God, this is crazy. Let's take a look at this. No. Well, look, it's fake. There's actually nothing useful behind that headline. And
Yeah.
look, news organizations get taken in by fake news. That happens. And that's why fake news, you really got to watch out. You got to check your sources. And even if you do, sometimes you still get taken in. And that's what's nefarious about it.
Well, here's the thing, though. I know we've kind of talked about this point on the show before, but I think it's really important to not forget about. Yeah, it's ridiculous that this administration is literally making stuff up, and now they're hiding under this fake news narrative whenever they get asked a question they don't want to answer. That's absolutely ridiculous. We've never seen anything to this extent in power, at least not in my lifetime. But let's not forget that part of the reason we have this fake news epidemic, that it's this talking point now, is because of the corporate media's ridiculous failure, because of how neutral they've been for years. When it comes to something like climate change, and you're supposed to be a news outlet informing people, and you give equal lip service to peer-reviewed science, and then somebody that thinks the Earth is 6,000 years old, probably because they were dropped on their head one too many times as an infant, and you give those two narratives equal lip service as if they're on the same playing field, you're completely neutral. You're not doing your job, and that's where alternative facts come from. When you don't take any objective stance on anything, and you misreport anything that would conflict with your advertiser's agenda, that's where fake alternative facts and fake news comes from. So a big reason we have this now, and I've said this before and I'll keep saying it, Donald Trump is the Frankenstein of our system. That's exactly what he is. So to just blame him is very short-sighted. He's the Frankenstein of our system. We have no common narrative, no common center now because of the media failing for years and years.
Yeah, and since the media did all that stuff, we've got no trust in it. There's no trust in corporate media anymore. because they stayed neutral, because they really prioritized access over giving actual facts. So you're right
Hmm.
about that. And we as a society are pretty much suffering from that now because, I mean, look what happened. Nobody believes anything on the news when there is actually, and yes, Washington Post is fucked up. New York Times is fucked up. I mean, there's been a lot of fuck ups in news, but there are still other also good stories and
Oh, of
factual
course.
stories and good investigations and actual facts in these from these news sites. So you have to
Right.
really go and try to separate fact from opinion.
Absolutely. And yeah, and I wasn't trying to make a blanket statement that it was like a complete abject failure all around. I mean, there's good content and good analysis that comes out from all types of sources every day. But as a whole, this is a result of a very significant structural failure that needs to change.
Yeah. And but to go back to the original point though, or the original point of the article is basically talking about how Trump considers anything that's against his narrative fake news. Now, you've got his friends, right? And it goes back to who he is. One of his friends, Newsmax CEO Chris Ruddy, said, quote, I think in his mind, the success of this is going to be the poll numbers, right? If they continue to be weak or go lower, then somebody's going to have to bear some responsibility for that. And again, this shows, again, how he's watching the poll numbers, and it really, I mean, it's obviously it pisses him off, and he's like, well, I can't have this. Somebody's going to suffer for this because it's not my fault. It's not my policies. It's got to be somebody else's fault. Now, the New York Times also writes that thanks to the enormous number of leaks from Trump's staff, he said that Trump has little access to his fans and supporters, an important source of feedback and validation, and feels increasingly pinched by the pressure of the job and the constant presence of protests. For a sense of what is happening outside, he watches cable news, both at night and during the day, too much in some eyes of in the eyes of some aides, often offering a bitter play-by-play of critics like CNN's Don Lemon, which is funny because we make fun of Don Lemon. uh, so it's interesting that Don Lemon got it wrong again. Wrong. You're wrong. Come on, man. But he also said that this is in response to an article that shows his incompetence and that of his team. He tweets out, I call my own shots, largely based on an accumulation of data, and everyone knows it. Some fake news, all caps media, in order to marginalize lies. That kind of rhymes a little bit. So, but again, this isn't true. This guy regularly skips briefings, doesn't really read all that much, and he just watches a lot of TV, and that's it. And this is not fake news. This is according to aides leaking to the press. These are his people that are talking about the incompetence in this administration. But again, anything comes out, nope, fake news, fake news.
Well, and I mean, I wonder from a time management standpoint, what the hell this guy's doing.
Oh,
I mean, I would not have that amount of time in a given day to watch cable news. And I can say this with 100% confidence. There's a hell of a lot less pressure on my gig than President of the United States. A hell of a lot less. And I wouldn't have that kind of time to watch cable news that much. I don't know many people that do, no matter what they do. Meanwhile, this guy, between tweeting and cable news, it's like, oh, when is he being president? And he's saying he's running his businesses too.
yep.
It's I mean this is a circus.
It absolutely is a circus. And look, the same New York Times article that I got that quote from is talking about how, again, he spends most of his day watching television in his bathrobe.
Yeah, how are we not
And then he
incredibly
gets
disturbed by
lost. He
this?
walks around the White House and gets lost. There are aides in that same article that can't find the light switches in different parts of the White House. Who can't find the light switches? Seriously.
I mean,
Insanity.
he has like the lifestyle habits, and I'm not trying to like poke fun at this because these are sick people. I'm just being honest here. Like he has the lifestyle habits of like someone that has a cocaine issue. Like just the way he'll like just randomly go off on something. Like he'll just like be sitting around and be like, Chicago, we got to do something about it. They're bothering me,
No,
or
no, no,
like
no, no.
whatever it may be, and then he just tweets. It's like almost like some kind of addiction type mentality where they just like wander from topic to topic, and then all of a sudden they're focused, and then they're just gone again. Like this is not a mentally stable human being.
Well, Ron, you said he doesn't just randomly sit there and think about Chicago. That was actually about 45 minutes after Bill O'Reilly said something about Chicago. So again, he's watching cable news and he's getting his cues from Fox or
Yeah, so he
CNN or
gets his
something.
cues from somewhere, but nonetheless, it's like, but then he's fixated on it, and it's
For a
like
short
you
amount
have
of
other
time,
stuff to do, is what I'm saying.
he tweets. Well, he sees the segment and then he's like, "Oh, I got to tweet about this. I got to take to the tweeter," and that's what he does. And he goes and he tweets something out, and then like 5 minutes later, he forgets about it.
Right? Yeah, I guess I don't know.
That's the way that this guy works. And look, this
And you
should
don't
this
find it disturbing? I mean that's
no, it is
bizarre.
disturbing.
That's bizarre for anybody having a job, especially if their job is president of the United
Well,
States.
this is the only job that he's ever really had too. So let's
That's a
be
good
fair
point.
about that. But I have a more disturbing part from this New York Times article, and this should be absolutely frightening. And this is, I mean, it's right in the middle of a section talking about the power struggles within the White House. It says Mr. Priebus bristles at the perception that he occupies a diminished perch in the West Wing pecking order compared with previous chiefs. But for the moment, Mr. Bannon, Steve Bannon, remains the president's dominant advisor, despite Mr. Trump's anger that he was not fully briefed on details of the executive order he signed, giving his chief strategist a seat on the National Security Council. That right there, nestled in that thing, in that paragraph, should be the most scariest thing ever. He signed something without reading it, without understanding what was in there. Oh, you mean I gave this job to Steve Bannon? All this power? I didn't know that. Dude, you're the president. You signed it. How do you not know what you're signing? I mean, it's one thing to like, those service agreements or something for iTunes when you want to download it or something, and you're just like scroll, 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 click. Sure, I agree. This is what Donald Trump is treating executive orders like. This is scary.
Well, I don't know, man. I'm going to be a little bit contrary here. I actually think that's the most politician-esque thing he has done so far. Not actually reading the bill. Why do we have the Patriot Act? Because nobody read the fucking thing, except for Dennis Kucinich. So now, if people are paying attention to this, that, yeah, he's not actually reading this stuff because he's such a dope and it's obvious and he's not even covering it up. Well, a lot of politicians have been doing this for
Yeah, but
years.
a
That's
lot of
part of
these
the reason why we have the
politicians,
ridiculous policies we have. So let's not tolerate it anymore.
I agree with your sentiment, but a lot of these politicians, they sign it because their donors say, and the people that pay them, hey, sign this.
But they
Oh,
don't
okay.
sign it
I
because
can
they
do that.
read it. They don't read it.
They don't read it. Their staffers read it, of course. But this is
Presumably.
this is Steve Bannon essentially saying, no, here, hey, Donald, sign this. And then later when somebody says, you signed something that put him into a more powerful position. What? What? I didn't know. Oh, you sure? Yeah, we're sure. You signed it. That's your signature.
So basically,
this is a little
he's
bit
just
more
a puppet
scary
being
than
pulled
standard
on
politician,
strings.
I think. It's a little worse than standard politician stuff, I think.
Maybe worse because it's in the spotlight. I don't know. I mean, you're basically saying he's a puppet on a string. Well, so was
Yeah,
George Bush for 8 years.
true.
So was George. I
But
mean, I mean that guy. If Dick Cheney put anything in front of him and said sign it, he would have done it. Obama actually, had some backbone and had some, had
some,
some moral guidelines. He was certainly very imperfect. We've talked about a lot of that too, but
sure.
yeah, I mean, I think this kind of goes into the theme where it's like people are really paying attention now because you kind of have just the epitome of everything that's wrong with the system that we have.
Yeah.
Because that's what Donald Trump is. That's what he'll go down in history as.
Well,
And
that's
it's
for
been a
sure.
week or so. Well, longer than a week now, but yeah.
Well, I know our president is. Look, he's going to go down, I think, as somebody who's a vain narcissist that watches cable TV and lives in a bubble where he thinks he's smart and that everything that's negative about him is just nothing more than fake news. Probably worst president ever. We're screwed, man. God help us all. If you believe in that.
Can't help you there.
If you believe in that. All right. I actually forgot the pictures to this. The images, so maybe we could skip the saddest Trump rally ever and move on to Bernie Sanders.
Wherever you want to go, man.
Yeah. So I know I forgot to get the pictures together of the sad Trump rally. And it just doesn't do it justice if I don't have the pictures for you guys. So let's go to Bernie Sanders.
I mean, isn't every Trump rally sad?
Yes, but this is sadder than most.
Is there ever a happy Trump rally where you're like, oh, these people, they just like that he speaks his mind?
Right. That's it. All right. Now, Senator Bernie Sanders is not happy with Donald Trump's recent decision to cut financial regulations on Wall Street. Now, during an interview with on CNN with Jake Tapper, Vermont Senator laid into Donald Trump for not only signing an executive order to dismantle Dodd-Frank, but also putting Goldman Sachs into his cabinet. Let's take a look.
You know, it is hard not to laugh to see President Trump alongside these Wall Street guys. To say this, Jake, and I don't mean to be disrespectful. This guy is a fraud. This guy ran for president of the United States saying, Donald Trump, I'm going to take on Wall Street. These guys are getting away with murder. Then suddenly he appoints all of these billionaires. His major financial advisor comes from Goldman Sachs, and now he's going to dismantle legislation that protects consumers. This is a guy who ran for president saying, I'm the only Republican. I'm not going to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And then he appoints all of these guys who are precisely going to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. So I hope that all of those folks who voted for Mr. Trump because he thought that he would stand up for working people, man, this guy is, he's a good showman. I will give you that. He's a good TV guy. But I think he's going to sell out the middle class and the working class of this country, and that business on Wall Street. He told us, in fact, it's in the Republican platform, he is going to bring back Glass-Steagall. We're going to be dividing up commercial banks from investor banks from insurance companies. Then he has all of the big Wall Street guys on his side, and now he's working for Wall Street.
Nailed it. I mean, there's not a whole lot more you can say about that. I mean, I think Donald Trump supporters, the ones who actually thought that he might actually try to clean up the system, you've been duped, guys. I mean, unless you like the global financial elite, unless you loved it when Steven Mnuchin was running One West and, foreclosed on your home. I bet that was awesome, right? Especially when he did it fraudulently. Or, of course, unless you're somebody who's just, super rich. I mean, Donald Trump has been doing all that he can to help super rich people.
Yeah, those are the only people that haven't been, that will likely not be duped. I mean, the people that voted on the single issue of we are very rich and we want whoever has our best interest as far as taxes go in mind. Those people will not be let down by Donald Trump. Every other person will be. The people that thought he would have the working classes back, they've been sold snake oil. There's no such thing as a populist Republican. Can we just state the obvious? That's not a thing. Maybe it was back in the 50s. In fact, it probably was back in the 50s. But a pro-union Republican is a lot like dinosaurs. They don't exist anymore. I've read about them. And the religious right tries to downplay their existence. That's what it's not a thing anymore. So there's no such thing as a populist Republican. That is not a thing. Because it completely contradicts what the GOP is about now. Maybe that wasn't the case in the history of the party, but now, yeah, it's not a thing.
You're wrong on one thing, though. There is one union that Republicans absolutely enthusiastically love: police unions.
Fair enough.
Got to point that out.
Fair enough.
I'll
give you that.
But look, as far as I mean, it depends on your definition of populism, right? So populism isn't necessarily a positive connotation, and it isn't necessarily a negative connotation. It depends what's popular. That's what it's talking about. Well, what's popular with a certain section of America? Racism. That seems to be popular with a certain subsection of America. And that's exactly one of the things that Donald Trump ran on. Racism. Also, fear, right? Fear of Muslims, Islamophobia. That's just a couple of populism things. And yes, also, hey, I'm going to bring back jobs. I'm going to help the working class in some way. And I'm going to go after the global financial elite. He didn't do that. And so, but you're right. He's only there to help himself and fellow rich people. And yes, he may have, saved a couple hundred jobs here and there with the carrier deal and stuff like that. But that's at the expense of massive amounts of taxpayer money in the form of giant tax cuts for these multinational corporations, for carrier. You spent how much money on saving 700 jobs? Somebody's going to have to pay for that. And then this corporation...
Well, and then he lost more.
Yeah, and this corporation is going to end up paying less than you in taxes because of this deal. So, you make the best deals. Best deals for whom?
But when you're, we could go back and forth about what populism, and nitpick the term, but populism also, when you're using it in the political sense, you're referring to something with dominant public opinion.
Right.
And when you live in a country where, the corporate elite is such a small percentage, and, I'd also like to think that racism, xenophobia, stuff like that is also not a huge percentage. It's a bigger percentage than I think a lot of us realized prior to November, but it's still not a huge percentage. So just because of that, when you're looking at populism from a political standpoint, and the GOP is the party of the elite, then yeah, you can't be a populist Republican. Like, it makes no sense. It's not possible. Maybe on certain issues, like racism and stuff like that. But it's like you're not an actual populist Republican. Like that's just an oxymoron in today's contemporary society.
But that's why they lie all the time. I mean, that's why you had the lie about, President Obama is stealing $600 billion from Medicare. I will save it. Actually, that's bullshit, right? Because that's actually the savings in Medicare spending under the ACA. They don't add that context because they don't give a damn about context. They're saying they're trying to use populist appeals because Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid are some of the most popular programs in the country. You also have, even investments in green energy are popular with Donald Trump supporters. There's a poll, right-leaning poll, by the way, by a Republican pollster, that found that 75% of Trump supporters are like, yeah, renewable energy makes sense. Let's expand it. Let's expand funding. Populism, right? And so, this is also, to go back to another angle here, this is what frustrates me about the Democrats so much, is because they don't understand. They don't understand populism. Bernie Sanders was the only guy that understood populism, right? And that's because he actually means it. That's because he actually does want to protect these programs. But you have people out there, you had Hillary Clinton running on non-populist. No, let's keep things status quo. Let's not do too much in the banks. Let's not do too much of this. No health care, nothing universal like that. Come on. They don't know how to use populism to their advantage. And I don't want them just using populism to win elections and then, do this to everybody once they win. I actually want them to actually do the policies that are popular. Now, whether or not our system, and I don't think it does, allows for politicians to do that, especially after they've taken money from these giant corporations that actually hate these programs and want to get rid of them so they can save money in taxes. Well, that's the system that we have. And we need to change that. But anyway, again, so Bernie Sanders is essentially saying, though, about Donald Trump and these Republicans, is that it's okay, you got taken in by a smooth talker. He did say he was going to protect Social Security. He did say he was going to protect Medicare. He even said, and I remember this, that he was going to tax hedge fund guys on Wall Street. Oh, those hedge funders, they're making too much money. We're going to tax them. Where's that proposal? Where's that executive order? Not that I'm saying that you could do that with all this stuff on executive orders. You actually can't. He's not a fucking king. But anything, like, is he pushing Congress on it? No, of course not. And even if he did, the Congress isn't actually going to do anything. But it would be him actually trying to at least give the impression that he was serious about doing those kinds of policies. No, the only things that I see, massive giveaways to the rich. And the only things that he's actually done is try to do executive orders to see about building a wall that won't stop tunnels, by the way, won't stop drugs. There's a
it's a huge waste of money.
A huge waste of money. A tremendous waste of money. It won't stop planes. It won't stop tunnels. It won't stop drugs. There's a story earlier in the Huffington Post over the weekend that I found. There's people that traffickers that build like drug cannons to shoot it over the border. They're shooting drugs over the border. Well, going to stop that. I guess if it's high enough. But these people are not going to. They're not going to be. Oh, they're not going to see the wall and be like, damn, there's a wall in our way. I guess we'll just give up the drug trade. That's ridiculous. They're going to find other ways to get in and to send the drugs in.
Yeah, well, and and this is just not even touching on the most obvious factor here, that it is grossly unnecessary. Just grossly unnecessary. Nothing but nationalistic xenophobia and racism. And such a huge waste. I still don't think we know the exact final number that thing's going to cost. And it is just such a shame. When we live in a country where people are saying we can't possibly have health care or education, and the fact that this is even a talking point is beyond bizarre.
It is. And the initial lowball projections, $25 billion. Mm-hmm. That's lowball. That's not anything to do with staffing or using American steel, as Donald Trump has promised to use, which is funny because he says, I'm going to use American steel for the wall, but he wouldn't even use it for his own companies. There were stories out during the election where he's like, we're going to buy Chinese steel. Come on, man. Really? I mean, yes.
They may have made up global warming, but they're good at making steel.
They're great at making steel. The best steel. The cheapest steel. And actually, Chinese steel is actually way substandard, too. That's the iron. That's why it's so cheap. That's why it's so cheap. But, hey, man, at least after all that, Donald Trump, he's still a good TV guy.
Yeah, I mean, he is. You can't really take that from him. He knows what he's doing on a reality television show.
That's true.
But
that's about it, man. That's about it. Sad. I just want to end every segment with sad. That's how it makes me feel. All right. Let's move on.
I want to start texting family members in Donald Trump Twitter lingo.
When they should have a Twitter app. They should have an app that does it for you.
Right? I think so. I just think that'd be really fun.
Yeah, reorganizes your tweets into Donald Trump.
Yeah, like my mom texts me and she's like, "Hey, how's life going? How's everything going?" I'm like, "Need more bookings, questioning career choices, sad," something like that,
Exactly.
It's
that's it. Get on that, Twitter. Get on that.
I just want to be compensated for my idea.
There you go. Because we had it first. You had it first.
Saw it here.
TYT Nation. All right. Now, on Sunday, the small group of pro-Trump protesters gathered in front of Trump's hotel in New York to try and counter a wave of anti-Trump protests nationwide. Now, one supporter by the name of Felix was at one of such protests, and he was talking to MSNBC about why he was there. Now, let's take a look at this.
Felix, can you tell us why are you out here today?
I voted for Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a great man. He's not a racist that people think he is.
Why do you say that?
because the person, listen, the guy is a pro-American, meaning that, he wants every American to achieve the American goal, whether it is a black person, an Asian person, a white person, a gay person. He does not discriminate.
Unless, of course, you're a Mexican or Muslim from one of the 7 countries that we banned immigration from. Then, if that's the case, we're going to discriminate the hell out of you.
Or he has apartments to give.
Or he has apartments to sell you, yes.
Yeah.
That's if you're a Saudi, though. That's not one of the 7 banned countries, though, because they've got business dealings there. 15 out of the 19 hijackers just happened to, 9/11 hijackers happen to be from Saudi Arabia, but that doesn't matter because they're not part of the list. Because they buy $40 million apartments from Donald Trump. But seriously, though, on to Felix. Why is it the first thing that he had to say is, Donald Trump is not a racist? That's kind of weird. Like, okay, you want to say he's a great man and he has great ideas, but he's not a racist. He's totally not a racist. Why do you have to bring that up? Why? That's curious. Why don't you take a shot at this, Ron? Why do you think that's the case?
Well, I think because Donald Trump is a racist, and I think it's just painstakingly obvious. Like how you cannot... neo-Nazis have a platform now. Like that's a thing now in 2017. And that's why I always say, I was like, if you're more outraged that Richard Spencer gets punched in the face than you are that a neo-Nazi has a mainstream platform in 2017, you're part of the problem, and you're an apologist yourself. Donald Trump is, I mean, there's no, you can't sugarcoat it at this point. The guy is racist, and so many people are still refusing to say that.
Yeah.
So many people are still... I mean, I did an interview once on this show where this guy goes... I was doing the... And of course, he edited all this out. None of this aired. But he goes, some people... there's some people that just, that they just don't like people of a different color. And I go, you mean racist? And he goes... he goes, yeah, there's some people that just think that white people are superior to other races. And I was like, you mean white supremacists? And he goes, well, I mean, they just don't like people of other colors or backgrounds. And I was like, you mean racist? And he goes, I'm hesitant to use that term.
Why are you...
And I was like, what do you want to call it? It's like,
you got to call it the way it is.
Why are you putting a bow on it, man?
You got to call it the way it is, though. If you're gonna solve the problem, you got to say it the way it is. I mean, that's what they always say about radical Islamic terrorism, right? You got to say it the way it is. If you want to solve the problem, you can't solve the problem if you don't call it out by name. Well, that's racism.
And he actually made that counterpoint, and to that I said, sure, we can totally do that, but let's call them Christian terrorists too, when that's appropriate.
When that's appropriate.
Let's call Dylan Roof a Christian terrorist.
Right? Or Anders Breivik. Let's call him a Christian terrorist.
Mm-hmm.
And a white supremacist as well. You can't just call out one thing by its name and then demand everybody call it by the same name. And then when somebody says, well, your side does have a problem with white supremacy and racism. No, we don't. They're alt-right. No, they're not. They're neo-Nazis. Stop being so PC. Why you gotta be so PC?
Yeah, right.
You're being politically correct.
Stop. Do you need a safe space, you snowflake? You can't own up to.
Exactly. No, this is some people on the right, the same people who complain so much about PC culture and liberal snowflakes, are the same people who are now saying, no, they're not white supremacists. They're not. That's not racism. No. He's not. No, none of these guys, the alt-right guys, Richard Spencer, not a racist, not a neo-Nazi. Nope. Not the same thing. Yeah, it is. You got to call it the way it is. I thought, Donald Trump was so popular because he spoke his mind. But when we speak our mind, we're being politically correct.
Right. And Jeff, that's something actually I want to say. What you're saying, the critiques that we're laying out here, some people on the left need to hear that as well. A lot of people
Sure.
on the left need to hear that as well, especially right now. Like, well, they have a different worldview. No, they're racist. Okay? If something is racist, it is racist. And you're allowed to call it that. If someone's a neo-Nazi, they're a neo-Nazi. Don't tie it up and put a bow on it. There's nothing productive about that.
Right. You got to call it the way it is. But anyway, now he's actually going to continue on this point and defend Donald Trump along the same lines. Let's take a look at that clip.
There is not one discrimination thing that he said on the campaign trail that make Donald Trump a racist person. Yes, he made some, crazy comments, but I don't hold him to his words. I hold him to his actions.
Do you feel confident that he can do the things you want to see happen for this country?
Absolutely. I think he's already started doing it, and I think he's going to be great for the country. I guarantee him 2 more years in office. 2018 is going to be the midterm election, and by that time, he's going to achieve most of the things that he said on the campaign trail.
See, Ron, we got this all wrong. You can't listen to what he says. You got to look at what he does. He only banned Muslims from 7 different countries and wants to build a wall to keep the Mexicans out. That's not racist at all.
No, it's helping everyone achieve the American goal.
The American goal. Hey, let's off topic for a second here. I kind of like that guy's hat.
It's a nice hat.
I like the hat.
It's the best hat. Look at his hat. Look at this guy's hat.
It wasn't.
That's
It's not a
Trump's
MAGA
go-to.
hat. It's a beef jerky hat.
Well, remember, like, that guy asked Donald Trump a question he had no answer for, so he, like, made the guy stand up and he, like, commented his hat. He's like, look at that guy's hat. It's a great hat. We're going to make it great. Because he had no clue, like, how to answer the guy's question.
But yeah. So
He's like
again,
a high school kid that didn't do the reading ahead of time. Him and that guy supporting him. I don't know who handed that guy all of his talking points to read, but,
Yeah.
I mean, that guy must have heard it and just parroted
Must
it.
have.
For whatever reason, and he probably takes a lot of slack from people going, "Why are you supporting this racist guy?" So right away, his go-to is like, "Well, he's not a racist." Yeah, he is, man. I'm sorry, he is.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you want to look at his policies, there's a little bit of racism in there, and then it's discriminatory. And look, maybe I don't know, Ron. Maybe we just have a different definition of that word than Felix does. We have a different meaning for that word. Discrimination.
We have a different meaning of the word actions too, apparently, because he's like, well, I don't take him on his words, I take him on his actions. Okay, well, how about the discriminatory housing policies? Is that not racist? How about
Pretty racist.
taking out a full-page ad in the newspaper calling for the heads of 5 black people that were innocent of the murder they were accused of, and then all these years later, still refusing to admit you were wrong? That's not racist? All the terrible things he said. I mean, how are those not racist actions? Those are actions. We're not even factoring in words here. Those are racist actions. So we must have a different definition of what actions mean. I guess actions only means what he did yesterday or what he did on Twitter. Maybe that, in which case I'm sure there's plenty of racist stuff there too. So I don't know. We have different definitions of words. We have different definitions of racism. We have different definitions of action. Or maybe I just spewed a bunch of alternative facts. I don't know.
Alternative facts, definitely. But yeah, again, look, maybe this guy, and I guess I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. He must not know a whole lot about Donald Trump. He must not know a whole lot about what he's talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's fair to say, and I don't want to come off as we're picking on the guy, but yeah, I mean, the fact that he's making those statements, you don't know much about Donald Trump. I mean, if you're going to say, like, I mean, I know, there's a guy that did my show before who is Mexican and supported Donald Trump, and he straight up said, in more or less, and he pretty much said, yeah, I think Donald Trump's a racist. I think he's racist against me. But I think that, immigration's the biggest problem we have in this country. So I don't care that he's racist. I just want all this to happen. I disagreed with the guy 120%. But I'm like, well, at least he's calling it what he is. At least he's saying, yeah, this guy's racist, and I don't like that, but I think this is a big problem, and so I'm going to support this guy, even though I full-fledged know he's a racist.
Well, at least you're being honest. But then at that point, too, you're also talking with somebody who also does not know about what he's talking about on the subject of immigration. And that's
right. Again, I
is,
completely disagree with the guy. That's totally
I know
wrong.
that. I know that. I'm not saying that you do. We're just saying that these a lot of these people are just factually challenged. And so it doesn't necessarily, and the point of going in saying that is, they're not bad people. They just don't have information, and they need proper information. And maybe, I don't know, if we had a better media structure that actually gives people information, and I don't know, rebuilds the destroyed trust between the people who consume that media and the media outlets, maybe by changing the corporate structure of it all into something not corporate, and that actually gives out facts, maybe we could avoid stuff like this. Who knows? I guess that's a good spot to end that on, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, we should go to the next thing.
All right. This is a fun little story. This is the only Super Bowl related story that we have. So
the Patriots won, Jeff, if you didn't know.
What's that? Oh, yeah.
Patriots won. I know. You said you didn't watch it.
I know, but you can't go on Facebook without learning who won.
Fair enough.
Even if you don't care about it. But anyway. So this is kind of an amazing story, and you probably might have already heard it, but Vladimir Putin had once stolen a Super Bowl ring from the Patriots. This is fascinating. Now, to give you a little bit of a context on what happened and how it fits in today, I'm going to tell you about when this had actually happened. It all started in 2005. Now, Robert Kraft is the owner of the Patriots. The Patriots did win the Super Bowl, and that's why this is relevant, of course. Now, Robert Kraft went to Russia with Sandy Whale. Now, Sandy is, of course, a friend of and president of the Citigroup at the time of the trip. Now, he just received, at the time of this trip, his Super Bowl ring for the win in Super Bowl 39. So he decided when he was there, I'm going to show the ring to Sandy Whale. And she's like, oh, great. Hey, you know what would be an awesome idea? If we were to show the ring to Vladimir Putin. He said, I took out the ring and showed it to Putin. He put it on and goes, quote, I can kill someone with this ring. I put my hand out and he put it in his pocket. And 3 KGB guys got around him and walked out. He took your ring. Who does that? I mean, other than Vladimir Putin. This guy came in, he took your ring. Oh, you have nice ring. I will take it now. Put it in my pocket.
I like how his first go-to is, I can kill somebody.
I can kill somebody with this ring. I mean, look, I guess Super Bowl rings are pretty big, right?
They're big, yeah.
They're big. And he's just like, ooh, I will take that.
This could be a weapon. I love it. It's such a bizarre. Like, not like, oh, this is the result of an athletic prowess that is quite revered in the United States, what an honor or whatever. Like, this could, if I hit someone in the Adam's apple with this, they might die. Yeah. Cool.
I will now take it. I have your ring.
Sicko.
I has it. I jump in. So that's
kill somebody with this ring.
That's who we're dealing with here, right? So this guy comes in, takes this other guy's ring, and then takes Crimea later. That's kind of who you're dealing with Vladimir Putin. Okay. So
God, jewelry shopping with him must be weird. Like he goes shopping for an engagement ring, like baby, I want to buy you the most the deadliest ring. You kill somebody with this ring, marry me.
Yeah. Oh, do you know how fast it would murder people with this ring? I would get that one. Okay, that'll be $1,400. I take your ring, and I put it in pocket.
Too much. He puts it in his pocket.
So again, this is an old story. It's been floating around for a while. There is a bit of an update to this. See, even after all these years, Putin still has a ring. He still got it in his pocket. But Robert Kraft, he wants his ring back. So he was talking to Fox News, Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday. And this was before the Patriots win, of course. And here's what he had to say about the old story and how he's going to try to get the ring back.
Finally, there is the famous story of you going to Russia in 2005 and showing Vladimir Putin your Super Bowl ring, and he walked off with it. I got several questions. One, did he ever give it back?
No.
Two, did you have a replacement ring made for the ring that President Putin absconded with?
Yes, but I was willing to have one made with his name on it. Maybe we'll have the new president bring it to him when he connects with him.
I was going to ask you, are you going to ask President Trump, when he has his first summit with Vladimir Putin, to give him a ring, a substitute ring, and get your original back?
That would be good. I do have an emotional attachment to that ring. And maybe, who knows, maybe if we win Sunday, I could trade a new one with him, have one made up in good spirit of friendship
and
between
President
our
Trump
countries.
could be the courier.
Right. We'll have him do that.
So the guy steals your ring, and then you're like, we'll just have him a new one, and then we'll trade it in the spirit of friendship.
I think it'd be awesome if he got
everything
his
about
ring
this.
back and there's all this blood on it. Like what is all this about? Don't worry about it. I said ring makes great weapon.
You don't ask him what he did with the ring. You just don't.
That's why I wouldn't want that ring back, actually.
Yeah.
I'm like, really? You want it back? He's had it for like over a decade. And his first thought was like, weapon. Who knows what he did with that thing?
Who knows? Yeah, but the whole point is, though, the guy stole your ring, and he says, well, maybe I can get it back by sucking up and being nice and having Donald Trump be an ambassador, because obviously they're such good friends, right? No, the guy stole it. But then again, what are you going to do? The guy does lead a giant nuclear-armed state, so how exactly are you going to get this thing back?
Yeah.
I don't think you're
And
going to.
Clearly, he likes weapons. He sees weapons in everything.
Maybe he does, and maybe that's the KGB thing, right? Who knows? But, dude, you're not getting your ring back. I highly doubt he's just going to go, oh, sorry, here's ring back. No, not going to happen. You might as well
No.
just cut your losses, dude.
You know what's interesting? Just because we brought up the Super Bowl, though, like everyone's politicizing the NFL now, which I think is kind of cool. Like a lot of people were rooting against the Patriots just because of Belichick and Brady, allegedly being tight with him. And I don't know. I know the speculation is still out over whether Brady was actually endorsing him or not, I believe. But, at the very least, they were like friends. But I find it interesting because I'm just like, where were you guys when like Tim Tebow was playing? That was a time for the NFL to be politicized, because this was a dude that was openly homophobic, that made anti-choice commercials during the Super Bowl, and had a group of people that honestly thought the Christian God was helping him win. Holy shit. I think he may have even been a shitty quarterback on purpose just so nobody could disprove that. If ever there was a time where it's like, if this guy would have won the Super Bowl, we probably would have seen an increase on like Christian-based like hate crimes, like Christians hurting other people. Like we definitely would have seen that. Like, and nobody was saying a word about it. Nobody was talking about that. Now all of a sudden, like, football's so politicized just because of like friends people keep. And I, for one, think it's very interesting. But it's like, where were you people when Tim Tebow was around?
That's a good question. I have no idea because I don't watch football.
Right, no, I know it's not your thing. And I'm not like a huge connoisseur either, but like if ever there was a time where it was like, okay, this is becoming really political, it's when like a Tim Tebow was playing, because that guy was a Christian chauvinist. And I call him that because he's smart enough to know better. He's not just a guy that honestly thinks he's doing the right thing. He's smart enough to know better. He was not a good dude, still isn't. And nobody was talking about that. No one was saying like this rhetoric is dangerous. Like people think like, a Christian God is helping him win. If this guy ever gets some kind of Super Bowl, you're going to see. I fully believe you would have seen more people hurting Muslims. You would have seen more people hurting Jewish people, and it would have been Christian terrorism to some degree.
But yeah, I don't know if that's
nobody was talking about it.
well. Okay, so I think you're right that we probably should have talked about it. That would have been a good thing. But most teams, I don't know if you know this, but I think most people who are religious are like, God wants my team to win.
Yeah, but dude, like there were people, and again, it's a small percent. I'm not saying there would have been like chaos in the streets or anything like that. I'm just saying like this dude, like there was groups of people that honestly thought, and there were groups of people that became a fan of his and whatever team he was on because they honestly thought a god was helping him win. That's dangerous. There's cyclical effects of that type of extremism. And I'm not saying it would have been some wide altering thing, but I'm saying it was real, and you definitely would have seen something very negative where people would have gotten hurt. I do firmly believe that would have been the case, and nobody was even mentioning it.
Well, I mean, again, I agree with mentioning it, but I don't know. I don't know if I see your worst case scenario, possibly mentally deranged people, that happens. But I'm not necessarily sold quite on that over Tim Tebow. You know what I mean?
I don't know,
think
man.
hurt people
here's the thing. He
out in
knows
Tim
better,
Tebow.
too. The guy's not dumb. If he was dumb, I wouldn't be saying any of this. He's not dumb. You don't play quarterback at one of the most demanding universities and finish with a 3.7 or whatever it is he had if you're not a bright guy. He's bright enough to know what he was doing. And instead of being like, you know what, my personal faith is my business, let's not kind of go crazy here. God is a loving God. He doesn't care who wins a sporting event. He embraced all that. And that was wrong on many levels, A.
Shameless.
And B.
I think it was shameless. And
yeah.
I mean, it's like pimping your religion for profit, essentially. I mean, that's my whole take of the whole Tim Tebow thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, and he was using the platform, but taking it to the extreme. And, and even like just beyond like, blessing people, which I think is rude. But yeah, I mean, and again, I'm not saying like there would have been like, people would have been beaten up in the streets left and right. But I'm saying there would have, when you have those extremists behind you and you don't like do anything, if ever there was a time to politicize the NFL, like that was it. And nobody said a word. But now all of a sudden, like this Super Bowl was super political. Like even the commercials, even like again, people just rooting against the Patriots because of their relationship with Trump. And I'm not saying it was a bad thing. I found it fascinating, but because over in Europe, football is very political. Football is very, very political over in Europe. Like there's left-wing teams and right-wing teams, and I think that's kind of cool. But now, like we're starting to see that here, and I think it's kind of a result of the political awakening that's happening because of this administration, which is one of the silver linings we have.
Yeah, you know what would have been a great time to politicize football? When we realized how many tax breaks we're giving to the NFL. And how much they're screwing the home states that they're in. I mean, they're getting, they've getting free stadiums, taxpayer-funded stadiums. That would have been a great time, like, to question, hey, why is this multi-billion-dollar industry getting subsidized by taxpayers? That would have been a great time.
They were a nonprofit up until recently.
And asked about that.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, that's why I was like, you know what, at this point, if we have 5 more Trump-esque administrations, people are eventually going to be like, Susan G. Komen, they're actually pretty shitty. They're actually not helping. They're parasites. We're not going to support this anymore. We're not going to do that. Like eventually, people are going to get there. Like first they're going to realize, hey, the NFL should have never been a nonprofit, and they're actually not really the most integrity-filled organization in the world. Then it's going to be like, and some of the organizations they support are really shitty too. And then eventually it's going to be like, all these players are millionaires. Maybe they don't need a free truck for winning the Super Bowl. Maybe they don't need that. Maybe they could donate that money or something like that to people in need. Maybe they can actually do something altruistic. Maybe this celebrity worship and advertising circle jerk isn't healthy, but one step at a time.
Blasphemy.
And I still enjoy the game. I'm still a hypocrite. I watched the Super Bowl.
But I think we can leave it on that note, Ron. That pretty much sums up everything. But all right, anyway, that's it for the show. We'll be back tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern, right here. YouTube.com/TYTNation. I want to thank Ron for being here, as always, sitting in, doing some commentary. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Jeff.
So it's always good to have you, man.
Yeah, man, likewise.
And everybody at home, thank you again for tuning in for the last hour and whatever, however extra long we went over. And thank you so much. Appreciate you. Love you guys. Remember to tune in 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. If you want to support the show, patreon.com/TYTNation. Follow us on Twitter. We've got a Facebook page, all that stuff. And make sure to subscribe. Like and subscribe. So that's like the best thing that you can do for us. So, all right, everybody. And remember, have a great afternoon. Have a great evening. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation.